Hello, people. Welcome back to another video by your good friend Chad Marco. Before I get started, attack the like button and let's chop it up, man. So recently, this Saturday, there was a big boxing fight between Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Bud Crawford. This is probably going to be the biggest fight of the year, or was the biggest fight of the year. Obviously, we had Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia a few months ago. I did a video on that. We have, I think, Jermell Charlo versus Canelo coming up in a few weeks or months, whatever. And they're talking about a rematch between Errol Spence and Terrence by December. I don't know if that'll happen, but yeah, this was like the biggest fight of the year probably. And so I watched it last night, and what a show it was. But you know what's so interesting about this fight is that this has been one of the most wanted, desired, and anticipated fights in all of boxing. This is a fight that has been brewing and building up traction and hype and people wanting to see it for years. I'd say up to like maybe 5 or 6 years, people have been talking about this particular matchup. I remember there's an old video that I'm sure every boxing fan has seen where I think it's Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford like 5 or 6 years ago. They're talking shit backstage somewhere, maybe after a fight. And they're just talking shit to each other. You know how boxers do and whatever, talking about, oh, I'll whoop your ass, or you whoop I'll whoop your ass, that type of shit. And it seemed like that's kind of where it really started. And ever since then, it's been just one of those fights that people always talked about. But the thing is, this fight, for the longest time, just was never able to get greenlit. It was never, they were never able to come to an agreement in terms of like the purse split and the circumstances of, because you know boxing is a business. It's a lot that goes into setting up a fight between two big fighters. It's not an easy thing, and it's not even just about money. Things can get as petty as, you know, disagreements about the type of boxing gloves that'll be used, where they'll fight at, and who can come out first and shit like that. And so there were a lot of different reasons, I'm sure, that kind of prevented this fight from happening as soon as people wanted it. But it's, you know, it's good that we got it. But you know, the thing about it was that for the longest time, people were always accusing one or the other of ducking. And I would say, generally speaking, Errol Spence was always the one that people thought was ducking Crawford. And I'm going to just go ahead and say this now. I picked Crawford to win this fight. And that's not just me trying to be right in hindsight. I really felt and believed that Crawford was going to win this fight. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm some elite boxing analyst or aficionado and I know the ins and outs, because I've seen a lot of other people predict that Crawford was going to win this fight. And they had a more detailed reasoning as to why they felt that. Me, not so much. But I'll tell you exactly why I thought that Crawford was going to win this fight, as he did, spoiler alert. But it was because this whole time, throughout this whole time of this fight being built up and being delayed and disagreements and them not being able to come together and make it happen, it always seemed like Terrence Crawford wanted to fight more. And maybe you could attribute that to the fact that Terrence Crawford is a bit more outspoken. You know, he's a humble, simple guy. You know, he doesn't live like a fast and flashy kind of lifestyle like Errol. Where Errol, you know, he rubbing elbows with rappers and shit like that. But he's actually the more like vocal and well-spoken of the two. And I would say even more charismatic. But he just seemed like he wanted it more. And I remember there was a video where Terrence Crawford said, he was talking to Errol Spence on, I think he was doing a video or something, and he wasn't talking directly to Errol, but he was like telling people like, man, I will break his fucking neck. I will break your neck. And when he said it, he it's like he wasn't talking shit. He said it with conviction. Like he knew if I fought this motherfucker, I would break his goddamn neck. And so that's really why I picked Terrence Crawford. You know, it was just that whenever I looked at both of them, Terrence just always looked like he wanted it more. And that doesn't always tell you everything, obviously, because it's kind of like you look at Ryan Garcia and Tank, and Ryan was the one that was the most vocal about the fight, but Tank beat that ass. But with Terrence, man, it was just different. Like, it was just his confidence and how bad he wanted it. It's like he knew. It's like he knew something that a lot of people didn't. And so the fight finally, they finally come to an agreement, and the fight happens, and it happens Saturday. And actually, I missed the first round. I was playing Street Fighter, and you know, normally with these fights, they'll tell, like, you know, you'll go to Google and type in when does the big fight start, and they'll say like 9 or 10 or something like that. But that's actually the undercard, because first, the undercard fighter is gonna go first, and that's like 2 or 3 fights sometimes, and then it'll be the main event. And so typically, even if everything starts at like 9 or 10, the main event is going to be to about 12, 12:30 or something like that. So I was playing Street Fighter and it was probably about 11 going on 11:30, and I was like, let me go check the sports board on 4chan real quick, see what everybody's talking about. And I seen people saying, let's go, let's go, let's go. I was like, oh shit, like it must just started. So, you know, I found my little stream, you know how we get down. And I got there, the first round was just ending. So I got there just in time because I only missed a little bit of the action. You know, normally the first round is like a fill out round, you know, and as far as I know, nothing really important happened then. So the second round starts, and I'm excited. You know, this is the kind of fight that when you watch it, it's so exciting. It sends chills down your spine. Like you can't believe that you're seeing like this quality of boxing happen. Like it's always an event when you get like some of the best fighters fighting one another like we got last night. And I swear I had chills just like when I first started watching. I was like, oh shit, anything could happen. That's exactly how I felt. I just felt like anything could happen. And it didn't take long for shit to really pop off. And so in the second round, Terrence Crawford actually knocked Errol Spence down. You know, some people call it a flash knockdown or whatever. I know Derek James, Errol Spence's trainer, said that he was off balance, but honestly, to me, that was a straight knockdown. that was a straight and effective knockdown. I wouldn't even call that a flash knockdown. But there was one part in the second round that I didn't really notice, but I've seen people talk about after the fact. Because you got to understand, going into this fight, part of the reason why some people believe, well, really a lot of people believe that Errol Spence could win this fight was that he's a naturally bigger person. You know, they're fighting in the same weight class, but you know, some people are just naturally bigger, and then they'll just go through a harsh weight cut to make the weight. So Errol Spence is actually bigger naturally than Terrence Crawford after rehydrating, and you can see it when they're in the ring together that you know, Errol Spence is just bigger than him. So a lot of people thought that he would have a size advantage and therefore a strength advantage. And there's a moment in the second round where they get they kind of get into a clinch, and you see Errol try to push Terrence off, and Terrence doesn't budge, but he manages to push Errol off. And so it kind of, that moment showed that even though Errol Spence is bigger, Terrence is stronger than him. And because I think Terrence was a wrestler in high school or something like that. So, you know, sometimes size and looks can be deceiving. You know, smaller guys can actually be stronger than some of the bigger guys. In fact, I have a friend that's relatively skinny, but I mean, he's strong, like he like 200 pounds, some shit like that. So maybe that, you know, Bud kind of has that same sort of thing going on. But he knocked him down, and it was obviously the arena just goes crazy because I don't think anybody was really expecting that, especially not that early. Because you understand, going into this fight for the most part was seen as a 50-50 fight. But you know what's funny is that, after the fight, as I look at everybody's reactions and things like that, it seemed like all of a sudden there are a lot more people who were like, well, actually, but and I'm just kind of speculating here because, like I said, it seems like more people are saying they thought Crawford would win than I thought I was seeing before the fight. And sometimes people are like that. But then it's like, it got me thinking, like, who thought Errol was gonna win? And I think part of the hype behind Errol is, and don't get me wrong, he's an excellent fighter, but I think a lot of it is just that he's the more popular fighter than Terrence Crawford. I think that, because you gotta think about it, Errol Spence represents Texas, and Texas is a more, I don't want to say significant, but Texas is like a pretty important state in the United States, and especially when you look at like hip hop culture, there are a lot of big hip hop artists from there and things like that. And he's known for rubbing elbows with rappers and celebrities, and so he's just more famous than Terrence is, period. And Terrence is from Omaha, Nebraska, which that's not exactly like glitz and glamour type of location. And I think that a lot of the support looking back that Errol got was based a lot on his popularity and reputation. But when I look at it, to me, I realized that more boxers actually thought that Terrence was gonna win. Like fighters and trainers, it's like, man, like it's crazy, like how this fight was billed as 50-50. And I don't get me wrong, I can see why that was the case, but it does seem like more fighters were aware that, yeah, Terrence is gonna win this fight. But the thing is too, in boxing, there's like, I'm not gonna say it's politics, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like it's a brotherhood or fraternity or something like that, where it's like you gotta be careful how you talk about people. Like, I remember when I was watching Showbiz the Adult and his reaction to the fight. He's a boxing analyst, YouTuber, and he went to the fight and he ran into Sean Porter, who fought both Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. And he said that there was a moment when he was talking to Sean Porter, and Sean Porter like just coldly told him Terrence gonna win this fight. But that's the kind of thing that a lot of fighters want. A lot of fighters would say it could be anyone can have it. Even Roy Jones before the fight was like, it's 50-50. So a lot of times they know, but they won't say it because they don't want to go against somebody that they know personally, and that's part of a lot of them, that they know each other. But anyway, so Errol Spence gets knocked down in the second round, and when he gets knocked down, it was already close to the end of the round. So, that pretty much saved him. I think he was hurt, not hurt bad, but he did look like he was on wobbly legs, and so they go back to the corners and all that, then they come back out. And what I noticed immediately in the third round was that Errol was pumped up. I noticed that in the beginning of the third. Now, I don't know if he was embarrassed. I don't know if he let his emotions get the best of him. But to me, it looked like he turned it up a gear or two when he came out for the third round, knowing that he got knocked down, knowing that now, he just suffered a 10-8 round. Maybe that motivated him. Maybe he was embarrassed, or maybe he just wasn't going 100% early like that. Because, a lot of times early in a fight, those are like fill out rounds where they trying to, get their spacing right, downloads the information of the opponent, And again, you kind of filling them out. You're not going full blast out the gate because you got to conserve and pace yourself, for the possibility of a 12-round fight. And so maybe he was kind of on cruise control a little bit, or just, I can say, taking it easy. Ain't no taking it easy in there, but just not going 100%. And in the third round, it was clear that he was like, I'm about to get some get back. Like, I could look at him and tell, like, it was get back time. And initially I thought, okay, Errol is about to take back a little bit of what he lost. And that wasn't the case. It looked like that for a little bit, but then it's like the more aggressive he became, the better or easier it was for Terrence to just pop shot him. And Terrence was, pretty much the whole story of the fight is that Terrence was just excellently counterpunching Errol Spence the whole night. One thing that I noticed that stood out to me was that he would jab with Errol. Like, he wouldn't allow Errol to just jab at him and set shit up. It looks like part of his game plan, and I heard that part of it was to shut down Errol's jab, and it seems like he did that by jabbing with Errol. In fact, it's kind of interesting because I know when Ali fought Kenny Norton had a similar plan where, the idea, because Ali had a great jab, I'll just jab with him. That's just one of the ways you can counter somebody who has a great jab, is to jab with them so they can't use the jab as effectively to set up their power shots. And other than that, Terrence was just, the counter punching was just so beautiful. And the other thing I noticed too was that whenever Terrence would hit Errol, it hurt him. You could tell, like, the way his head would get knocked back, the way he reacted. He would stumble a little bit, like his feet wasn't steady under his own body. And the other thing too was that because Errol was hitting Terrence, like it wasn't like he wasn't able to hit him. He wasn't hitting him as much. But when he hit him, what stood out to me was like Terrence was taking those shots. And Terrence said in an interview with Stephen A. Smith that when he took, I think he took a looping right hand or left hand from Errol, and he was like, is that all he got? Is that all he got? And because, again, I was expecting this to be a 50-50 fight. So when Errol would hit Terrence, I was like, there he go. But then nothing ever happened. He would hit him, and it just seemed like it didn't have any effect. Like he was fighting a Terminator or some shit. But when Terrence was hitting him, it was having an effect. And so from there, the fight was pretty much all Terrence Crawford. It was just shutting down Errol Spence's jab by jabbing with him. Excellent counter punching and just great boxing and fighting overall. And I remember just as the fight went on, it was just like, it was a massacre. It was an absolute massacre. And when you look at Errol Spence's face, like, you start to see his lips busted up, his nose was bleeding, his eyes were swelling up, his cheek was swelling up. I mean, for lack of a better term, Terrence Crawford beat the dog shit out of Errol Spence. From when that third round started and Errol Spence tried to bull rush him and all that and got shut down, from there to the end of the fight, he just got the shit beat out of him like the whole time. And he would get his shots off. He would hit, he was going to the body and he would get some hit. Like, perfect example is there was a knockdown. Maybe it was like the 7th round or something, where Terrence had backed up to the rope and he had his guard up. And he had his guard up, but then like a little bit, he lowered it some. And Errol ducked down and hit Terrence with I think it was a looping left hand. And it hit Terrence like it hit him good. But I think either right before or right as he hit Terrence hit him with a beautiful short uppercut. and that uppercut knocked Errol on his ass. And it's the perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say Errol could hit Terrence, but it wouldn't do what Terrence hitting him was doing. Terrence hitting him was fucking his face up, knocking him down, knocking him around, knocking him back, knocking his head back. But Errol wasn't able to really do significant damage to Terrence, even when he could hit him. And even when you look at the punch stats too, Terrence just hit Errol way more. I'm just gonna give Errol credit where credit is due, because he did get some shots in, but they just weren't effective. And I think it was in the ninth round. That's when the fight had finally got stopped. I think Errol got knocked down like twice in that round. And by that point, I remember at that point, I was thinking like, man, look at how bad it is for Errol right now. He's getting his ass whooped. And he still got a whole third of a fight left. Because that would have been 9, 10, 11, 12. And remember, he got stopped in the ninth. If he wouldn't have got stopped, it would have been 3 more rounds of that shit. And it was obvious that by that point, he wasn't going to turn it around. I thought maybe during like the middle rounds, but the further it went into it, the more obvious it was that this was just an absolute mismatch. Regardless of what everybody thought, this wasn't even close to a 50-50 fight. This was a 90-10 fight. This, in all reality, no jokes, this was a 90-10 fight. And there's a shot where I think yeah, it was in the ninth round. Terrence hit Errol so fucking hard, bruh. I gotta find that. But he hit Errol so hard. I remember, I think I saw Lil Wayne in the crowd, and he said, "Oh my God." You can see it like his mouth. He said, "Oh my God." And it was a shot where it was clean. It was hard. It rocked Errol, and I'm not sure. I got to go back and watch this fight again. But I remember as I was watching it, it looked like Errol was like, fuck. Like, he didn't say it, but it's like in the way he looked and his body language after getting hit, it was like not like he got hit as a fighter who can take it for better or for worse. It was like, like this. It was like like I'm getting abused. And soon after that, Terrence really jumped on him and started whooping on him, and the referee stopped the fight, and that was that. But it was a one-sided fight, damn near from beginning to end. I heard some people give Errol the first round, but remember, I started watching the fight at the very end of the first round, so I didn't see that. But in the second round, Terrence knocked him down, and it was all Terrence from there. And now I told you in the beginning of the video, I thought Crawford would win the fight, and he did. Yay me. But I had no idea it was gonna be this one-sided. I did not predict the ass whooping. I gotta be honest. I just thought Terrence would win. Maybe by, like, I would say by the decision, knockout on the lower end of possibility, but definitely by decision, either unanimous or split. But I definitely thought that he would win. I just didn't think it was going to be like this. He beat his ass. And I mean, there are a lot of people who are now looking at Terrence Crawford in a completely different light in terms of where do we place this man in the all-time rankings of great boxers. Like for the first time, you're hearing people talk about or say Terrence's name in the same breath as Mayweather and Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hack, like those guys. Like, this fight did so much for his legacy. He proved so much. And I'm seeing some people kind of give pushback on that and say it's just one fight. You know, who was he fought? The resume, you know, resume, all that shit. But I think what people got to realize is that what we saw Terrence do, what he did is so impressive because he beat one of the best elite boxers of our era and made it look easy. You have to understand how rare that is. Look at Sugar Ray Leonard, for instance. His biggest fights, Duran, Hearns, Hagler. He lost the first fight to Duran. He won the second one, but Duran was more mentally defeated, and that he just quit. He didn't get his ass whooped. He just quit. Against Thomas Hearns, Leonard was losing the fight, but through, you know, great skill and will and just that championship mentality, he was able to score a knockout, I think in the 13th or 14th round, like towards the end of the fight. But that was a war. When he fought Hagler, that was another war. A lot of people don't think he even beat Hagler. Some people call it a draw. Some people think Hagler beat him. But that was another war. Well, and his biggest fights were wars, bro. You look at Mayweather. Now Mayweather got a fantastic resume, but how many of the best did he really completely dominate? Like, did he dominate and beat the shit out of Pacquiao? You know, did he? You know what I'm saying? And or you look at maybe Canelo, but Canelo was like what 22 or something. Like, it was a baby then. Basically, he schooled him, but he didn't just beat the shit. Terrence beat the shit out of this man. Look at Ali and Frazier, another good example. Like, when the best fight the best, that was a war. Frazier won the fight and was still in and out of the hospital for a month. So my point is, I think you got to give Terrence extra points because he didn't just win. He beat the shit out of who was considered one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. That is rare. Even when the best fight the best, it's rare that it's going to be a one-sided ass kicking. That's something special. And I think that's why Terrence deserves special consideration and extra points for that. Because that's damn near unheard of. When the best fight the best, it's usually going to be at least competitive. You know, and definitely not an ass beating like that. That was just, ugh. But, you know, you got to give Errol credit where credit is due. You know, he took the loss like a man. He didn't make any excuses. I think about, you know, Deontay Wilder. As much as we love Deontay Wilder and Bomb Squad and all that, you know, when he lost to Tyson Fury, he made all these excuses and fired his trainer, said the suit was too heavy and there was somebody poisoned him, put something in the water. Tyson Fury had cheated and all. I mean, and you know, Errol took the loss like a man. Like, he probably got his ass beat just as bad as Deontay did, but he took the loss like a man. He was respectful. He didn't run away. You know, when Adrian Broner got his first loss, he left the ring and went backstage. Now, he ain't do none of that. Errol's waited in the ring. He did his interviews and post-fight conference and post-fight press conference. He did everything like a man and a gentleman and a professional. And I think you got to give him so much credit for that. To take not just his first loss, but a beating where, and you know, all his friends and family and supporters and children and his girls and all of that, like everybody, haters, everybody's seen it. And he had to experience that in front of millions of people, in front of everybody. And he you know, he stood there and you know, he handled it. He dealt with it. And I think that, you know, that takes a lot. I sit here, I think about how salty and upset I get over losing a Street Fighter. This guy gets his ass whooped in real life and takes it better than most people would. You could tell he was deeply up. Don't get me wrong. You could tell like he was, oh man, you could tell he was salty. You could tell he was upset, but he powered through it, man. And I think he deserved so much credit for that. And It seems like he wants to run it back. He wants a rematch. They're already, because I think that there was a rematch clause, and I think he's activated it. And he said in his tweet that he wants to get the rematch before the end of the year. I follow a YouTuber named Carcino for Life. You know, he knows a lot about the music and boxing industry and sports industry. And, you know, he says that his sources say that the rematch could happen as early as December 9th or something like that. Me personally, I would love to see the rematch. I don't think Errol can beat this guy. I don't think Errol beats Terrence on any night. But I love a spectacle. I love big sporting events. I love big boxing events. And you just know that regardless of how it turned out, there's still going to be a lot of interest in a rematch. A lot of people wanting to see if Errol will be able to get his revenge and knock Terrence down a few notches. If it's going to be a repeat of what happened Saturday night, or even worse, or maybe it'll at least be a little bit more competitive. But I think December is too soon. I was watching Sean Porter's podcast, and he said the same thing. December is too soon. Errol took a bad ass whooping. And you know, what Sean Porter was talking about was that a lot of people don't know about boxing is that it's not just recovering from the fight. You got to recover from training for the fight too. And so he was saying too, like, December is just too soon. And I feel the same way. As much as I would like to see the rematch, I'd rather see Errol get the proper amount of rest. I think this fight the rematch shouldn't happen any sooner than like before like February. I'd say by like February, March of next year or something like that. But I think December is too soon. And then on top of that, you know, Errol, his speech is, you know, he kind of a laid back, chill guy. So his speech has always been kind of, he a country guy from Texas and shit. So his speech always been a kind of like, subpar. But after the fight, it sounded like there was some damage. And it's very possible to get damage during a fight and have it be obvious after the fight by your speech. If you look at Riddick Bowe, I think Riddick Bowe versus Andrew Galata 2. Riddick Bowe won the fight by disqualification, but he got his ass whooped and took a lot of bad headshots. And after the fight, he was stumbling and slurring his words a lot. And Errol Spence didn't sound that bad, but in my opinion, it sounded like his speech was worse after that fight. And that could be a sign of brain damage. That could be a sign of cognitive decline. I saw somebody on Twitter even mention this. They compared his speech from like 5 years ago to his speech now, and it's definitely a difference. And so I think that Errol really needs to consider just taking some time off. I don't think he should rush back, but given everything that he lost last night in terms of his belts, his value and stock in the boxing, in the world of boxing, his reputation and everything, I can understand, you know, why you would want to run it back so quick. You know, it's kind of like when you play Street Fighter and you lose that first set, you want to hit the rematch button real quick. But, you know, sometimes you got to take that time to breathe and you know, gather your thoughts. And in the case of boxing in real life, I mean, you got to recover mentally, man. He needs time to recover mentally and physically, process this defeat, come up with a new game plan, enjoy life, enjoy the fruits of his labor, and then come back to it with a fresh mind. Don't rush into it. I think that's a bad. Because now you're upset, you're mad, you're salty, and you're not really looking at shit clear. take some time away, process the pain, process the defeat, and then start to look at it from a new angle, a fresh perspective. And that's probably the only way you're going to be able to figure out a way to beat Terrence Crawford. But that was my analysis of the fight and the events surrounding the fight. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll definitely be doing another video for Canelo versus Charlo. I'm kind of excited about that fight. I like the Charlo twins. Real savage duo there, and we all know Canelo is a monster in his own right when it comes to boxing. So I'm sure it's going to be a great fight. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you around. Johnny.